Okay, so we're back with Karen Baker, and we're talking a little bit about things that people can experience in the workplace that might have them say, "Oh, I need more Karen." And we talked about a couple of different scenarios: the sales scenario, where maybe it's not being handled very professionally, and obviously, when it's time for a duly qualified woman to get a promotion. What else, Karen?
Yeah, I wanted to mention about the promotion is that whoever has when a woman is not getting promoted, if she's been passed over more than once, then I examine her network of connections with her. The decision makers for her promotion, how is her relationship to them? How's her connection to them? How do they perceive her? Do they see her as a troublemaker? Do they see her as somebody that has a voice and is willing to be visible and put herself in the spotlight and take responsibility? So typically, when a woman isn't getting promoted, it's because she hasn't made relationships with the right people in the organization who could help her get promoted. She hasn't made herself visible to them. She hasn't let them know why she's behind their agenda, why she's behind their initiatives. So again, it's about relationship building with the people that have something to say about her future in the organization. Um, Another way is when women are leading an organization, sometimes their own entrepreneurial business, or it's sometimes they're the head of a department and they're facing challenges from the people inside of their team that are disrespectful for whatever reason or talking behind their back, or there's a lot of ways that people on your team might sabotage you. So, ways to create more harmony, set boundaries without being ugly or rude, just by being professional, tough, addressing what we're all here for, and letting people know that that kind of behavior doesn't fly inside of this team. So those are three of the top issues in a business. And then there's always the personal relationships, the things that happen between women and their significant other, and the way that relationships go off the rails, especially for women that are in that business realm all day long. And then they come home and they don't know how to turn on the partner behavior, and instead they are staying in the business like behavior, which can lead to lack of connection, lack of the things that a good, healthy personal relationship needs. So I work with women on both sides of the issue of relating, the personal and the professional.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Obviously, I'm not a woman, so I hadn't. But I can certainly see where it's more complex. Taking off different hats as you walk through the threshold of a doorway or something. Without giving away trade secrets, I want to dive into a few questions. So, this question is around self advocacy without the backlash. So, like, basically, what's your framework for helping women, advocate for raises and promotions or authority without triggering resistance or being labeled
Mm,
difficult or any other condescending word that some male might throw at them?
wow, you pretty much have your pulse on that, right? Um, yeah, the reason why I'm liking this question is because a woman can have a similar behavior to a man, but for the man, it's just accepted that he would behave that way. And then the woman is labeled aggressive. And that self advocacy, I think the first thing is to be clear about what is wanted here. So, going into an interview with clarity about what would be the outcome that you're after. And then clarity always runs the day. Clarity is the most vital leadership tool. And I used to joke that when my son was 2 years old, I was ready to put him to bed at 8 p.m. But if he had more clarity that he wanted to stay up than I had clarity that I wanted him to go to sleep, when his dad came in from work at 10 p.m., he would still be awake. So whoever has the most clarity in the room is the de facto leader. So be clear about what are the outcomes that are acceptable and what is your top most desired outcome. And I think with that, women typically need to listen more, talk less, and really let the other person know that they're being heard. That's something that, by the way, women do really well. We are good listeners, and it's softens the relationship when the other person can get all of their concerns out on the table, out of their insides, and air them. And sometimes all that's needed is for the other person to have their say, and then there's a space to speak into. And because women are typically sensitive to relationship dynamics and become even more so when they learn my set of tricks, they can really use that listening, that receptivity to their advantage. Does that answer your question?
It answers it. It does. Okay, I want to jump into one I'm calling the likable versus the respected trap.
Mm.
And so I think many women feel pressure early on to be likable and then respected second. How do you help clients break out of that kind of mindset? You know, obviously while still trying to build the strong relationships you keep speaking about.
That's a really brilliant question. And it addresses the way that men and women are different another way. So, men, they equate respect with admiration. Men like to get respect, and women typically like to get affection. That's what shows them that they're admired. So, falling into that trap, women in the professional world can try to be people pleasers and make people like them. But they again have to know what's their bottom line. Are they okay with someone calling them sweetie? Or are they not okay with that because they think that it lessens the professionalism and they want to keep the professionalism in place? So all they have to do is, in an extremely non threatening way, in a non public way, meaning over a desk, over a coffee, here is an appropriate way to address the women in the organization. And you may not know this, but sweetie is something that you can use on your daughters and your wife, but it's not appropriate business language. And just wait and find out, how do they react. But if women don't threaten, they often won't raise the hackles. But because we're emotional creatures, who doesn't know that? Sometimes women lose their cool and they respond in an emotional manner. Well, then the man will also respond in an emotional manner and it will escalate the engagement. So, breathing, having standards, getting communication training, understanding that men literally, their first teacher is their mother. So, men are highly attuned to women because most of us, men and women had a mother that they learned how to relate to women through their relationship with their mother. So,
That's a good point, but it makes me curious about sort of the invisible rules. And I've always thought that what are the unspoken rules of the workplace that men might learn earlier than women, if there are any? Maybe there aren't.
that they might learn earlier, what do you mean?
You know, that they might just come to accept in the workplace as being, the norm, and maybe women learn that later. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's just my take on from experience.
I don't know if this is what you're getting at, but what comes to my mind is that the workplace is competitive. It's dog eat dog. Who hasn't heard that before? Intimidation is often used to jockey for position. And that's not typically a way that women enjoy interacting. But it's up to us to make them change. It's up to us to change the tone of the conversation. But if we think we're not going to encounter that in the business world, we should find another planet. It's going to be like that in the business world. But
You've
what typically
obviously,
I see, yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I typically see in an unhealthy environment, business environment, is that the women, so you see men compete. I mean, the Super Bowl's a good example. You know, the men, they bash their heads against each other. They're literally fighting to the death, clawing each other's face masks. And then at the end of the game, they pat each other on the butt and they go out and have a beer together, even though they were just sworn enemies on the field. So while the game was happening, they were taking it deathly serious. But then when the game is over, they can kind of go back into their male camaraderie again. But women forget that the mistake I see women make is either they don't take the game seriously enough. And so the men in the game are like, she's not trustworthy. We can't promote her. We can't give her that big account because she's flippant. She shows up to work late. She doesn't take our meetings seriously. She doesn't show up and, let us know that we can rely on her as a player. That's one thing. Or she will take it too seriously and she'll start out competing the men. And she'll forget that while you're competing on the battlefield, you also need to go out and have a beer afterwards and play pool and have camaraderie with the men. So those are two ways that women fail to fit into the business environment because they don't feel comfortable. But that is the business environment. When I was growing up, I was put to work every summer. Now I see it was a great gift in my dad's insurance agency down on Fannin and Dennis Street. The building is still there. And all around the outside in the offices with windows were the men agents. And there was one woman agent, and she was a tough old bird. She was a divorced woman raising her two sons. But I didn't get to work in those outside offices and go out on sales calls with prospects. I worked inside the secretary pool where it was clacking typewriters, fluorescent lights, and file cabinets, and no windows. And that's what I thought business was. I thought it was alphabetized anniversary statements. And I thought, I never want to go into business. And then I met a mentor who showed me that business was all about people, which of course my dad knew as well. I just don't think he ever thought to take me out on a sales call because that isn't what girls did in those days.
God for the
What I
changes.
learned about business is it's tough. If you're not prepared to be tough, find a role where you don't have to be tough. But if you want to be the owner, you want to be the department head, you want to be promoted and get the status or the income or the influence, then you need to learn to play by the men's rules because they made up the game. On the other hand, you can influence the game by who you are. Sense of humor, number one asset in business as a woman, is don't take the men that seriously. They're just joking around. They don't mean to offend you. They just don't know any better. So you just have to kindly tell them. And most men want to behave. They want to get along with everybody. They want to succeed. They're not out to do anything wrong. We just have to become their educators. I mean, the mom's the first educator. Then I don't know about you, but nursery school or kindergarten through 12th grade, the majority of my teachers were women. So all people in our country are acclimated to learn from women. So if a woman comes to you in a non-aggressive way and says, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about, an interaction that happened yesterday, I thought it over and I just wanted to ask you if you would be willing to do this, then usually a woman is going to get cooperation. But sometimes where she fails is she reacts in the moment and then there's a defensive posture and then it just doesn't go well and no one learns anything, but everybody gets a chip on their shoulder. And literally women just can't afford that. We just can't afford it. We have to be more professional.
You've gotten to work with a lot of very successful women already. Is there one or two things that might like hold them back to the next level that you've observed? And if so, what would those be?
Alienating the people that could promote them. In other words, not following their rules, the people that have the authority to say, yes, she can join our team here. Not speaking up, not sharing your ideas, letting someone else take credit for her idea instead of claiming credit and trying to be modest or
I've probably heard that from women more than anything in my long career, of entrepreneurship,
what
35, 40.
specifically.
Just that, I should have been given credit for that, or I that was my idea and I wasn't appreciated for that, or yeah.
Well,
Okay, I
I
got
have a
two.
way to stop that.
I'm
So
gonna let people hire you to learn how to do that.
when my team goes into the corporate world, we teach the women specifically because men and women are raised differently. So boys are raised to brag and puff their chest up and like, look what I did. And that is not typically how girls are raised. So we have to learn to toot our own horn. And there's a process that I teach called acknowledgement. And it happens inside of a structure called a team meeting where everybody gets to toot their own horn. Everybody gets to say the brilliant thing that they did. And they also get to toot the other's horns. And that really creates a strong team spirit when people can ask for the appreciation that they want and they can give others appreciation. And it creates a culture where real teamwork is possible. And the model that I see is sports. Like if you're ever in a locker room, you know that the guys are rough on each other, but they also give credit where credit is due. And a lot of women just aren't used to asking for that. So I teach them how to get the acknowledgement that they need so that they're visible when promotion time comes. Somebody else isn't stealing their idea and they can say, yeah, I did that thing. And people remember, yeah, she did do that thing, by the way.
Okay, I got two left. I'm gonna let you think about the first one, which is I want you to think of a fun customer service story that really warms your heart where you were successful. And my second question is you can answer them in any order. If you were sitting down with your 25-year-old self, a young woman just entering the leadership in the business space, what would you stop doing immediately?
Wow. That is such a great question. I'll tell you what I would stop doing immediately is hiding. Anything that people wanted to give me, I would say yes. I wouldn't be so picky about my assignments and so arrogant as to think that I knew what my highest and best use was. I would literally listen to the people that had enough faith in me to offer something, and I would stop saying no. I would say, yes, thank you for the opportunity. I think I missed a lot of learning that way.
Yeah, yeah, I'll do that.
Think of a good customer service story.
One you've touched or heard from recently, maybe that you made a big impact in their life.
Well, there is a client that I can think of who works with a mostly male team, and the pressure comes from the top down. So the leader of the organization is pressuring the VP is pressuring the director is pressuring the people in his team. And I just basically told her she's going to have to learn a way to deal with the pressure because it's not going to go away. So I suggested a foam baseball bat that I saw at Academy. And I said, when the pressure gets to be too much, take that foam baseball bat, set a timer for 5 minutes, and hit the cushions on your couch. Because at the end of the day, the more pressure you experience, the worse you're going to feel. You have to have an outlet for that pressure. And, typically in our country, men have more heart attacks than women Although, unfortunately, the rate of women having heart attacks is increasing as more and more women are in the workforce. We have got to learn how to let the pressure out. And going to the gym is great, but she said it makes a big difference when she takes that bat and just in the middle of her day takes a 5-minute break, a pressure release break. Then she can go back to her job and wait till the pressure builds up again, because it's a competitive environment. We're looking to serve people faster than anyone else serves them so we can get their business. It's a pressureful environment. And I believe that one of the reasons women quit is because the pressure is too much for them. And let's just talk about physiology briefly. Men have this musculature, they're physically denser than women. Women are smaller boned, more emotional. So the pressure affects us differently. And if we don't find a way to release the pressure, one day we're just going to say, it's too much. I have so much resentment. Those people are always pressuring me. Well, that is part of the game. Let's learn how to handle the pressure so that you can stay in the game and come back into the game without all that buildup of resentment and anger and pressure, because that's not good for anybody.
That's awesome. Great advice. Well, tell the audience how we reach you, whether that's email or phone, so that should someone
Yep.
want to get in touch with you, they'll know just how to do that.
Please reach out, Karen at businessaspleasure.com. I have a website, businessaspleasure.com. I'm all over social media, but especially Karen Liba Baker on LinkedIn. And that also describes what I do and how I help women. I think that women are the greatest untapped resource in our society. What we bring is incomparable to what men bring. The men are like the fighter pilot, and they love to knock the walls down. The women are like the radar, so we can finesse which walls exactly need to be knocked down before the damage is done.
Love
And
that analogy.
anyone that doesn't have radar is a fighter pilot that's in danger.
Awesome. Well, I knew this time would go by fast. When we first sat down, we were both going at it for 40. Also, we look up and it's been 45 minutes or an hour. So great having you on today. I appreciate the time and the wisdom so much, and I know our audience does as well. So have a great rest of your afternoon, and we
Thank you
hope to
so much.
see
Thank
you
you,
soon.
Scott.
Okay, thank
It's a
you.
pleasure
Bye-bye.
talking with you. Bye for now.